This isn't Gwent. You're right, but fear not, dear viewer. Gwent will always be the meat and potatoes of this channel.
That is fucking disgusting.
However, Marvel Snap is popping off in the Gwent community, so I figured this would be a great way to make a little extra content while also expressing my opinion on the game. So let's review Marvel Snap. Disclaimer: my opinion on this game may differ from yours, and that's okay. While my views are completely subjective, I will try to articulate my opinion to the best of my ability so you can understand why I feel the way I do about this game. Also, I hold Gwent up as a gold standard of collectible card games, so I will be comparing the two extensively. Let's get started. Marvel Snap is a collectible card game, or CCG, just like Gwent, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and Storybook Brawl. You collect stronger cards to help you win more games, and you build your decks with cards that synergize with each other in order to have a strategy of how to win your games. That's where most of the similarities stop though. The gameplay mechanics are very different. You and your opponent are battling over 3 parts of the board called locations. One of you must have more points at least 2 of these locations in order to win the game. If there is a tie, it is broken based on total points. There is only room on the board to play 4 cards at each location. Your deck has 12 cards, you will draw 3 cards round 1 and 1 card every subsequent round. You can only have 7 cards in your hand maximum. Each card costs energy ranging from 1 to 6. Your first turn you will only have 1 energy to use, but you will gain 1 extra energy every turn. Turn 2 has 2 energy, turn 3 has 3 energy, and so on. The energy system in Snap is a lot like farming mana from lands in Magic the Gathering. However, instead of having to play enough lands in order to play your creatures, you just automatically gain energy every turn. That is if the game progresses naturally and isn't interrupted by the game. That's right, it's not just you versus your opponent, you're both also at the mercy of the board. For purposes of oversimplification, I want you to imagine that Gwent is like Rummy. You play cards that work with each other in various ways to gain more points. Your opponent may do things that disrupt you, and you may get unlucky with draws. But at its core, Rummy is a battle between you and your opponent and requires a lot of skill. Snap is more like poker, where you're fully reliant on luck most of the time. However, imagine playing poker with the same hand at 3 different tables. Each table has different house rules. Table 1 won't let you play any face cards. Table 2 shuffles a bunch of useless Uno cards in your deck you can't really benefit from. Table 3 yoinks the best card out of your hand you were saving for round 6 and completely wastes it. Just like poker, you're playing for stakes. In this case, cubes are at stake. Cubes are tied to your player level. To be honest, I'm not really sure what benefits player level has since you unlock cards from your collection level. Lose too many games and you lose levels. Also, just like poker, you're not expected to win every game. If you think you're going to lose, you can always retreat, which is similar to folding. On the other hand, if you're confident in your hand and you think you're going to win, you may snap, which is basically raising the stakes. Locations. I hate the negative effects of locations. Positive effects are fine, but it's basically impossible to control your draws as is. The last thing I want or need is 5 rocks in my deck, thank you. Based on the same reasons I hate the Patience is a Virtue seasonal event in Gwent. The less control my opponent or I have over the outcome of the game, the more I dislike it. This isn't the Binding of Isaac where the game purposely messes with you. In that case, it's you versus the game. The game interjecting itself into play is extremely off-putting to me in a multiplayer setting. Imagine playing football. You plan on throwing the ball, but a massive net spawns across the 50-yard line. You try to run the ball. Only players with odd-numbered jerseys are allowed on this part of the field. Also, your running back was violently thrown into the stands and is out of the game. While that would be somewhat entertaining to watch, I imagine the coaches would be losing their minds. All that time writing playbooks and training players to do specific jobs only to show up and have the game completely change would be very frustrating. RNG. Going back to my last statement about location, Snap is a huge RNG fiesta. From locations to draws, the game is mostly luck with a little bit of skill. Unlocking cards. I concede to the fact I currently have all cards in Gwent unlocked, so it's been quite some time since I felt the bitter sting of being uncommon poor. However, over the year or so it took me to accomplish this feat, I was still able to play almost every archetype I wanted to in Gwent to some degree. Also, as I ranked up and faced better players with better cards, it in turn forced me to change my playstyle and unlock better cards to compete. As someone who strives to work outside the meta, I do recognize it will always affect your playstyle to some degree. Like an ever-changing political landscape, you may not like it, but you do have to live with it. Snap removes the freedom for you to choose your next unlock and instead sends you on a linear unlock path. I understand the reason for the pools as a pseudo-skill group, but I still hate it. Gwent's scrap system is infinitely better. There's a lot of cards in Marvel Snap I'd like to play, but I won't see for months as they are level locked. This also causes linear progression stagnant state, where you're always going to play the same cards as your opponent because you're both in the same collection pool. And there's only so many cards that even are good together. It's basically like a bunch of ants climbing a pole, and all the ants are carrying the same grain of rice. Gwent's scrap system lets you unlock any card you want as long as you have the scraps. This makes possibilities endless for beginners. You have so many options available to you right away, all you have to do is grind a little bit. It's basically like a bunch of ants running through the grass. More things to do, less chance of running into the same ant. Consistency, or lack thereof. While it may not sound problematic due to the relatively low number of cards in your decks, you won't find any draw or tutor cards for a long time in Snap. I'm not in the upper pools yet, but from what I hear, there are little to none. This means you cannot run decks that are solely dependent on combos. You're almost never going to draw all the cards you need, and if you do, the sequencing of the energy system makes them very hard to pull off. There's also no way that I know of to shuffle cards back into your deck, so if you draw Angel, you're stuck with him. Oh, thanks Angel, I appreciate you. Also, I know there are consistency cards like Quicksilver that draw themselves into your hand, but that's nearly the same as not having an ability in my opinion. I would much rather have a card that does something like Iron Man than Quicksilver, whose main mission in life is to feed Carnage. Most variants. I told you I was going to be very subjective. Some of the variants are cool looking, but honestly I prefer the base cards to most variants. What is this abomination? The Hulk isn't meant to be cute! Oh god, no, stop. The shop is mostly a scam. Credits are pretty much the only thing worthwhile in the shop. Yes, Gwent's shop offers like 90% vanities that you don't really need, but the kegs do offer a fantastic boost to your collection. If you want to do free-to-play only, you can acquire these kegs through gold ore that you earn in-game. While I personally won't be spending any money in the Snap shop, I do see some value in the seasonal pass with the extra mystery card unlocks. What do I like? Easy learning curve. The near absence of consistent synergies makes it very easy for beginners to just do stuff without much game knowledge. A raw novice who's never played a CCG before could pick up Snap and not only have fun with it, but be fairly good at it within a couple hours. The games are lightning fast. While I do love slugging it out for 15 to 20 minutes trying to make a triple Magic Compass meme deck work in Gwent, I am a busy man with busy man things to do. Snap games usually take around 3 minutes or so. You can knock out 3 games on smoke break and be back to work by the time your boss comes looking for you. It's an excellent time killer for people on the go. Runs smooth, updates fast. Snap has a very simplistic art style reminiscent of an actual comic book. This has the benefits of not only looking good, but since the assets aren't very CPU heavy, the game runs very smooth. Snap was obviously made with mobile in mind and it works really well on mobile. However, on the PC version it kinda looks like a direct from mobile port with all this dead space on the side. While it adds a lot of creative freedom to streamers and YouTubers, I think this space can be put to better use. Updates are also near seamless, while Gwent has a much more visually intense art style with a lot of 3D elements. For the most part it also runs smooth, but you can see the frames tank if too many animations are going on. This also causes updates to be very intrusive. Surprisingly fun! While I do suffer from Gwent syndrome and I have grievances with the location mechanic and those freaking rocks, I do find the game to be a fun diversion for brief periods of time. I'll usually smash out a couple of games while I'm break at work or waiting for something. It can't hold my attention for long periods of time, but I do find myself returning for a few games a couple times a day. While it lacks substance of a more established game like Magic or Gwent, it has a simplistic allure that's hard to resist. Remember, we live in a world where beautiful, complex masterpieces like Beethoven's work exist, but we find ourselves listening to modern pop music because it's catchy and fun.
Got nothing in my brain.
Let's briefly summarize with a list of pros and cons, shall we? Pros: easy to pick up, quick game sessions, smooth gameplay, aesthetically pleasing, surprisingly fun. Cons: RNG. The game is your second opponent. If you leave your account to your grandkids in your will, they might be able to unlock all the cards after you die. Horrible consistency tools. Scammy shop. Chibi variants are abominations. Fight me. As I stated at the beginning of the video, I hold Gwent as the gold standard of CCGs in my opinion. That being said, Snap isn't even in the same league as Gwent because it's a completely different game with a completely different playstyle. It would be like comparing football with basketball. They're both ball games, but that's where the similarities stop. However, due to the built-in game mechanics and lack of consistency tools that actively negatively impact players, I have to take Snap down a few notches on my list of card games. I currently think Snap is a bronze tier CCG. I would definitely recommend it for beginners or casuals who are looking for a card game to get started on, while it's also fun for experienced CCG players. Personally, I prefer to face my opponent directly rather than also trying to work around a hostile board state created by the game. That being said, the game is still in early access, so there's lots of room for improvement and it may climb its way up the rankings here pretty soon. So dear viewer, what do you think of Marvel Snap? I'm open to civil discourse in the comments section about it, and my opinions are not set in stone. If substantial changes are made to the game, or I change my mind about certain things, I may update this review in the future. In the meantime, I'm open to recommendations on other card games to review. Be sure to check out all my socials linked down below, and if you like this video and you want to see more like them, be sure to Sparta kick that subscribe button. Thank you guys for watching, I hope you enjoyed.